afternoon everyone, and welcome to Brew at 2. My name is Lynn, and my favourite mug is this one here, which says Mummy Bear, and that's because my daughter bought it for me, so it has a special meaning. I've been a member of Christ Church now for about 28 years. I've always been involved with church or Sunday school from a young age, when I was probably 5, and grew up in the church. When I was about 12 years old, in fact, when I was in senior school, I met with a girl who I've become friendly with, and her family were involved with the Salvation Army. So I decided to go along to one of the meetings, which I found really good fun, and I really enjoyed. Met some really nice people there. It was the Bootle Citadel in Liverpool, and so I joined the Salvation Army and became a junior soldier. Had the uniform and everything, and also a tambourine, which was very good fun, and we used to play along with the band. I did enjoy my time there, I must admit. But by the as years went on and I started work, I did sort of had a time where I a bit like Rob actually, I lapsed, and I didn't really go to church very much. But things changed for me. The same as Vicky actually, when I became pregnant and I was having my daughter. I felt there was a time when I was feeling very low, and there was something lacking in my life, something that I needed. Maybe it was something that I needed to get back to. Perhaps this was God's timing, I'm not too sure. But anyway, I decided to go to a service at our local church at the time, and that was St John's in Waterloo. What happened was I went to this service, and what was happening at that service was they had a group called the Salt Mine Christian Company who were doing a dramatisation. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what the dramatisation was, but I know that it hit home. I think it was God's way of telling me that this was the time I had to commit and do something about this feeling I had. So it was rather strange, because I sat at the back of church, and the service was going on, and at the end they asked for anybody who wanted to be prayed for. And I think at the time I assumed that everybody, or quite a lot of people, would put their hands up, but as it turned out it was only me, and I was sitting right at the back. Anyway, I got prayed for, and it was really lovely. Because I felt the Spirit move in me that day. It was definitely a big important part of my Christian life. It was as if, I know you've probably heard this expression, born again, but I definitely think that day I was born again. I went home that day, and I flew home from the church. And I think the family could just see this massive difference in the way I was and the way I acted. It definitely, the Lord had come back, or rather I think God had put his hand on me and brought me back into the fold really after that day. But anyway, I got involved with the church quite a lot, and we were quite an active church, an evangelical church, and we used to go each week to Bible study fellowship in Southport, and this particular time we were studying the Acts of the Apostles, and I remember the particular part about the stoning of Stephen, one of our first evangelists, and I was so moved by this. In fact, it made me cry. And it sort of led on to Saul's conversion to Paul, and how God had become such an important part of his life, and how he changed. He was actually there at the stoning of Stephen and watched on but he changed his life around, and it was just so moving. And but the strange thing was, after that, many years later, I was looking at some old religious instruction books, and I didn't realise, but I'd actually studied the stoning of Stephen many years earlier, or probably when I was about 14. And it was strange how, for me, it seemed like the Bible Study Fellowship was the first time that I'd actually read about the stone of Stephen. So it is true that God's timing is important, and he comes to us at certain times in our life when we really need him. And the other story which I think means an awful lot to me is also the story of the lost sheep. Matthew 18 verses 12 to 14. If a shepherd has 100 sheep and one wanders away and is lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others and go out into the hills to search for the lost one? And if he finds it, he will surely rejoice over it more than over the 99 that didn't wander away. In the same way, it is not my heavenly Father's will that even one of these little ones should perish. And I feel the same way, that at a time in my life I was at one of the lost sheep, but the Lord put his hand on my shoulder and brought me back into the fold again, and I thank the Lord every day for that. The Lord saved me, and I know that he can save you too. Amen.